What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Friday, August 8th edition of the Ship My Money Show. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoney DFS. Massive 14-game MLB slate tonight. Obviously, a lot of things to talk about. Pros and cons to slates of this size. Pros, you can pretty much play whatever you want. Ownership can only get so out of hand when there's 28 teams playing. Downside is, especially in large field tournaments, somebody's going to hit 3 home runs tonight, and if you don't have them, you're not winning. And good luck figuring out who that is. But it's nice if you have them. Nice when it works out that way. So pros and cons to slates of this size. We're going to talk through every game by game, break down all the matchups, all of that stuff. I did make lineups before the show. I'm not going to spend a ton of time getting into my exposures unless something really stands out. I don't feel the need to tell you that I'm around the field on 25 different offenses. But if my exposures somewhere are drastically different, I will point that out. If I don't say anything and you're curious, just assume that I'm around the field. But I will dive into all the matchups, let you know what I think looks the best, whether I happen to be playing it or not. Before we get into it, reminder to subscribe to the channel. Hit the thumbs up button, turn on notifications so you get alerts when shows go live. We will be having a lot more content on the site in the not too distant future, going to have a lot more NFL content than we have MLB. So turn on notifications so you get those alerts. Also, speaking of NFL, our NFL packages are live. Mentioned it the other day, but the link is in the description below. We have an offering for, I think, everybody, whether you're somebody that plays low stakes, low volume, whether you're somebody that plays 150 lineups, MME, whatever it may be. I think we have something that is useful for you. I will say, to be completely honest, that we mispriced our projections themselves, and I don't think you will find a better projections value in the industry. We have a $25 a month package that includes projections. You can sim up to 5 lineups. So it's good for single entry, 3 max, but even if you're just somebody aggregating projections, they're $25 a month. I think most of the other sites you have to buy like full sims packages and pay $100+ a month. That was not exactly intentional, but we put it out there and now we're just sticking with it. But we also, as I mentioned, have our improved sims. Nerdy Tenor in particular spent a lot of time in the offseason revamping the sims that were already in place here, improving them. So really excited about that and how they work. We have a video on the site now that Shady Advice talked about the portfolio tool that he is offering, that you can basically sim your lineups using our sims, send them to Shady, and he'll diversify your portfolio for you, essentially. So we have that add-on available for all of our packages as well. If you're interested in that, that video is on the site with Davis and Brick on the YouTube channel, rather. So you can check that out. I'm going to sooner or later have a video up as well, just kind of quickly detailing all the different packages. But the link is in the description below. You can read about them on the site. I think that there's something for everybody. So I'm really excited about that. And you can use promo code EARLYBIRD, get 15% off of whichever package you sign up for. Really excited. It's the first full package that we've put out since acquiring the site. We have MLB, we have PGA, but they were limited in some form or fashion. MLB, for example, we don't have sims, we just have projections. But really excited about this because you can just use our site if you want to. And it's the first product that's been the case. So check that out. Really excited for NFL season. I will also be heavily involved in the projections, which I'm excited about. Haven't had a hands-on approach personally in projections before. I've kind of just been on the receiving end, the one going on shows and bitching about what's wrong with them instead of actually having input. So I'm excited about that. Just really excited about NFL season. Probably the most excited I've been about an NFL season. How did I do yesterday? I only played like 3 max yesterday. I cashed 1 out of 3. No, I didn't play NFL preseason. I never do. I know there's money to be made. I just hate that kind of research. I hate NBA preseason. I don't like NFL preseason. I've never actually played NFL preseason. I have played NBA, but I just don't enjoy the researching coach speak, spending all day trying to interpret who's playing and all that stuff. Give me who's going to play. I'll take the data and build lineups with it. I prefer that a lot more than spending my day hunting through Twitter trying to figure that stuff out. I am a little excited for preseason tonight. I'm not playing, but I know the Commanders play. So maybe we'll actually watch my first snap of preseason football tonight. I'm not sure. But getting into it, again, I'm going to try and go as quickly as I can because 14 games is a lot. And I really don't like talking for an hour and a half. It's not super fun. But starting with the A's taking on the O's in Baltimore, pretty high total in this one, like 5 to 5.5 total for the A's, about 5 for the Orioles. JT Ginn going for the A's. Tomo Sugano going for the Orioles. So not the best pitchers in this one. We've certainly seen Sugano come back to earth after a good start to the season. That was not surprising at all. Both of these pitchers are inexpensive. I think on a smaller slate, I would maybe have some interest in either of them. Like the A's have a lot of strikeouts in their lineup. JT Ginn's not a terrible pitcher, but on this slate, I don't think either one is super appealing. Ginn's getting like 3.5% ownership. Saganu's getting like 1%. I just don't really see much reason to get to either one. It's not like the Orioles offense is bad or anything like that. JT Ginn is right-handed as well. If anything, like the Orioles do struggle against left-handed pitching, but you don't get that advantage here. 33 innings pitched for JT Ginn this season as a starter, 21% strikeout percentage for Sugano, striking out 15.5% of hitters in 114 innings pitched. I am just not super interested in any of the pitching. For the bats here, we're getting 5% give or take ownership to everybody on the A's. The highest owned guys here are Brent Rooker and Shea Langoliers at about 8% going up against Sugano. Good spot overall. I will mention that for the right-handed bats, it is a home run downgrade. It is more difficult to hit home runs in Camden Yards than most places for right-handed hitters, certainly more so than the fake ballpark that the A's play in Sacramento. So that is a little bit of a negative for guys like Rooker and Langoliers. It is still a very good place to hit left-handed home runs, so not much of an issue for Nick Kurtz, Lawrence Butler, those guys. But Rooker, Langoliers, it does suck a little bit that they have the wall 350 feet or whatever it is now in left field. They did move it in from last season, but it's not back to where it used to be. As far as splits for Sugano go this season, he's somebody that just doesn't have a lot of swing and miss stuff. He's very, very reliant on being able to locate. He does have a decent splitter that when he's able to locate and get ahead in counts, he can utilize. But if he's not able to get to that pitch, he doesn't really have anything else. On his fastball, for example, this season, he's allowed a 243 expected ISO to righties, and he's allowed a 306 expected ISO to lefties. So if he's not able to get ahead in counts, he is in a lot of trouble. If he can get ahead in counts, then he can go to that splitter a little bit more. And it is a pitch that generates some swing and miss, around a 13% swinging strike percentage to both sides of the plate, relatively limited power. But again, the margin for error for him is very small. And as a result, right-handed hitters overall this year, 209 expected ISO, left-handed hitters, 254 expected ISO. My highest owned bat from the A's is Lawrence Butler at 11%. That's about 2x the field at 4,600. But I, again, would prefer the left-handed bats here. He gives up power to both sides, but power is just going to play better from the left side in this stadium. For the Orioles against JT Ginn, similar, 5% ownership to most of these guys. 10% to Gunnar Henderson is the high mark at $5,400 at shortstop. JT Ginn, again, limited sample so far this season, did pitch a bit in the majors last year as well. Going back to last season, 128 expected ISO against righties with a 28.7% K percentage. Lefties, though, only striking out 16% of the time, 200 expected ISO. And in his limited sample this year, it's pretty similar, 30.5% K percentage to righties, only 16% to lefties, much more power allowed to lefties. That's a pretty scary trait to have when you're facing the Orioles in Camden Yards. Holiday is left-handed, Henderson's left-handed, Rutschman is left-handed, Kowser is left-handed, Carlson, not the same sort of power as those guys, but also left-handed. Westberg will be hitting from the right side, obviously. O'Neill, assuming he's in the lineup, he's dealing with a sore wrist is his current ailment. He's had like 6 different injuries this year. But those guys are obviously just good hitters. He does, JT Ginn, that is, at least have the platoon advantage against them. But there's a lot of good left-handed bats in this lineup that can make life difficult, and that certainly look pretty appealing here if you can get to them. Dylan Carlson, again, not the best of those left-handed hitters, but he is only $2,100. Adley's $4,100. That's certainly reasonable. Don't mind the $5,400 for Gunnar. Kowser is only $3,200. He's been basically league average this year. There is a chance you get Ryan Noda in the lineup. He's $2,900. He would have some pinch hit risk if he's in there. So do keep that in mind, that if the A's go to a lefty later in the game, if Noda were to start, he's probably getting pinch hit for later in the game. You also potentially have value with Jeremiah Jackson. He's somebody where maybe they start Noda over him, and then he comes in later if a lefty comes in. But if Jeremiah Jackson does start, he's only $2,400. He's 25, former second-round pick by the Angels. He had kind of just like stalled in Double-A, ended up going to the Mets, sucked in their Double-A on their Double-A team as well. Came to the Orioles. He's cut down his strikeouts a lot. He's changed his approach at the plate. He's been very aggressive early in counts. So he's not walking a lot, but he's also not striking out a lot. He's shown above average power in the minors. So at 2,400, if he is in the lineup, that's a reasonable value option. But again, he is right-handed, and Jin has been essentially lights out against righties going back to last year. So for both of these teams, righties are fine, especially if they're cheap, or, in the case of the A's, they're just really good, like Brent Rooker and Langoliers. But lefties on both sides would be the bigger priority for me. For one, because of the park, and in the case of the Orioles hitters, because JT Jin is a lot weaker against left-handed hitting as well. Going to Yankee Stadium, Yankees hosting the Houston Astros, about a 4 total for the Yankees, between 4 and 4.5 for the Astros. Hunter Brown pitching for Houston, Cam Schlittler pitching for the Yankees, $7,300 price tag on Schlittler, $10K on Hunter Brown, 14% projected ownership coming into Brown, about 7 to 8% coming into Schlittler. I basically have it flipped right now, and I assume it's just a pricing thing. Obviously, I think Hunter Brown is great. There is strikeout upside going against the Yankees, but it's also a very dangerous spot to be facing the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. You have Aaron Judge back. Brown has been one of the best pitchers in the American League this year, non-Tarek Skubal division. Skubal being on this slate does limit interest in Brown somewhat, but a 30.5% strikeout percentage for Brown in 131 innings pitched this year. That's up 5.5 points from last year. His stuff plus grade is up 4 points from last year. He's been very, very good. He's, again, not Tarek Skubal, but he is very, very good. The matchup is scary, and I'm getting about 9 to 10% Brown. So I am getting to him as a secondary option, just not quite as much as the field. For Schlittler so far, 19 2/3 innings pitched in the majors. His stuff plus grade is very good, 106.7, well above average. His command has been close to average. He has struck out about 24% of hitters so far. He's a highly regarded pitching prospect. The matchup against the Astros is okay. But mostly I just like the price tag here at 7,300. I'm about 2x the field, getting to 17% at about 8% ownership. Josh Gillum said Ginn has solid advanced numbers. He has he has extremely good numbers against righties and extremely bad numbers against lefties, essentially. He has like the most drastic splits that you can get, really going back to last season. So both pitchers here I think are fine, look pretty good. I have more Schlittler than Brown, probably just because of the price difference. For the bats on the Houston side against Schlittler, not much ownership coming in here at all. Jeremy Pena getting 5% ownership at 3,900. That is the highest owned guy. I'm getting above the field on a handful of these guys. Carlos Correa showing up 10% for me. Christian Walker, 9%. Yainer Diaz, 8%. Jesus Sanchez, 7%. Altuve, 6%. That puts me at least 2x the field on all of those guys. I'm not getting to much of anybody else from the Astros. Schlittler, again, limited sample so far this season, has allowed a lot of power to righties, but only 142 pitches thrown to righties, only 201 thrown to lefties, has a higher strikeout percentage against lefties, has allowed less production, less power. Pretty likely that's a sample size issue for him. So if I am looking to go to the Astros, I'm really just looking to get to like the best hitters / the best values, and they are affordably priced. Outside of $5,300 Altuve, the most expensive hitter in this projected lineup is Jesus Sanchez at $4K. You have $3,900 Pena, $3,900 Correa, $3,800 Walker, $3,700 Diaz. Obviously, left-handed power does play up in this park more than right-handed power, but the Astros don't believe in left-handed hitters outside of, they did, I guess, acquire Jesus Sanchez. So you have him now in Yankee Stadium from the left side. But mostly if I'm going to the Astros, it's not that I love the matchup. It's just that they are in Yankee Stadium, good offensive park overall. They are cheap because a lot of their established, bona fide major league hitters just haven't been great this year. But that there is legitimate power upside for Walker, for Diaz, for Correa. So it's kind of just a good ceiling per dollar, for lack of a better phrase, spot, even though the matchup isn't great. For the Yankees against Brown, I don't really have any interest. If you wanted to go there, the argument is simply it's the Yankees at home at basically zero ownership. They have a lot of power upside, obviously. They're in Yankee Stadium, but you have 28 offenses to choose from today. Hunter Brown is hands down one of the most talented pitchers on the slate. It's just not a spot that I'm very likely to get to. You don't need me to tell you that if you want to click Aaron Judge, that's fine, but just not a spot that me or the field are going to be prioritizing. As far as things that I will be prioritizing, Tarek Skubal is on the mound for Detroit, hosting the Angels. So you're getting the Angels out of Anaheim in a park where it is much more difficult to hit home runs. Kyle Hendricks is going for the Angels on the other side. I will not be prioritizing Hendricks, but Tarek Skubal, $11,600 price tag, projected for about 38% ownership. I have 84% right now. He is far and away my highest owned guy if the slate started right now. I am very, very flat everywhere else on the slate. I think my next highest owned guy is Christopher Sanchez at like 20%. I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but I think that's what it was when I looked at it before the show. But then I have Skubal in nearly every lineup at 84%. There's just so many offenses going today that you're not going to have trouble finding value bats. There's going to be plenty of relatively inexpensive SP2s that you can rotate through if you want to. It just makes it very, very easy to get Skubal into lineups. You're only using one roster spot on him, so it's different than going to a very popular stack on a 14-game slate. I fully expect to just be building around Tarek Skubal tonight. That's not anything exciting for you to hear. Like I'm sure everybody that does a show today is going to be very excited to get to Tarek Skubal. He's going to be very popular, but I don't really care. He's unbelievably good. There are strikeouts to be had in this Angels lineup. It's going to be a right-handed heavy Angels lineup most likely, but he has a 34.4% strikeout percentage against righties this year, 142 expected ISO, 263 expected WOBA. Just looks fantastic. There's not a whole lot else to say there. For the bats, I'm good. I don't need Angels bats on a 14-game slate. Yes, he's going to be 40% owned. No, I don't really care. No, I'm not planning to go there. For the Tigers bats against Hendricks, a little bit different story. I'm not getting to too much of them. They're not super popular, but it is at least a pretty good matchup against him. Kerry Carpenter, Gleyber Torres, Colt Keith leading the way at about 7% ownership apiece. Everybody else is like 3 to 5% owned. Looking at Hendricks overall this season, only a 155 expected ISO to lefties, so he has kept lefties in check. Not super surprising, given that he does throw his changeup 40% of the time. That is a pitch that's going to play better against opposite-handed hitters. It's a little surprising just because, he probably should have stopped pitching in the major league several years ago. But righties have done more damage against him this year. 204 expected ISO. $4,400 price tag for Gleyber Torres looks pretty nice against right-handed pitching so far this season. 192 expected ISO for Torres. From the left side, you do have a lot of power. 213 expected ISO for Colt Keith against right-handed pitching this year. 290 for Kerry Carpenter. 307 for Riley Green. Obviously love to get to those guys if I can. The best right-handed power bat is Spencer Torkelson, who has a 235 expected ISO. He is 4,500 at a first base position that has plenty of opportunity costs, though. Jake mentioned the pinch hitting for Detroit. It's not as much of an issue necessarily against righties because it's just, bullpens are going to have fewer lefties to come in. It is a much bigger issue when you get a lefty starting, because obviously everybody has an abundance of right-handed relievers to come in. The Angels bullpen, taking a quick look, probably does have three lefties available. They didn't play yesterday. They have 3 lefties in their bullpen. Detmers typically at the back end, Brock Burke and Andrew Chafin. So they do have lefties available. So there is, some pinch hit risk here. If we look at how things simmed out for us, relatively low on Green, pretty high on Carpenter, pretty high on Keith. So yeah, the matchup isn't ideal for that. That is a good call from Jake. McKinstry relatively high here as well. So maybe that's why I'm not getting too much. When I first looked, it was like, damn, I would really like to have more $3,800 Kerry Carpenter or $3,400 Colt Keith, but that probably is what's driving it down a little bit. And then you get to Riley Green, who has much lower pinch hit risk, but he's 5,100 in the outfield, where every team has high upside players, and it's harder to just single out one outfielder and say I want to play a lot of this guy. So that is a good point. And then also, like I had said, the lefties Hendricks rather has done a better job limiting left-handed power. So I guess I would, and I'm not getting to a lot of them personally right now, but if I had to single anything out from the Tigers, I think it would actually be Torkelson and Torres. They're your two best right-handed power bats, Torkelson in particular, although, again, the opportunity cost at first base is going to be high on a 14-game slate, but that's what Hendricks has really struggled with this year. Also, keep in mind, this game is in Comerica or whatever. I don't know if it's still Comerica, whatever Detroit Stadium is these days. That's not a great place for hitting home runs either. And with it being a 14-game slate, you're going to have plenty of places that are good for hitting home runs. So keep that in mind as well. Miami taking on the Braves in Atlanta. Disappointing loss for Miami last night. Blew a, I believe, 6-2 lead. 4.5 total for the Marlins tonight with Edward Cabrera on the mound. Bryce Elder going for the Braves, who have about a 4 total against Cabrera. $8,200 price tag on Cabrera, $6,100 on Elder. 4% ownership coming into Cabrera, 4% coming into Elder. I think both of these guys on a smaller slate would be pretty interesting. They would have both been certainly popular on yesterday's 3-gamer. The Marlins offense isn't the best, but they also don't strike out a lot. Elder also is certainly not the best pitcher. Comes into this game with just an 18.5% strikeout percentage this year. Cabrera on the other side does have good stuff. You've gotten improved command from him this year, about a 25% strikeout percentage, 105 stuff plus grade in 100 innings pitched. Location plus grade has gone from 95 last year to 101 this year, but he just doesn't stand out when you have 28 pitchers. He's correctly priced probably at 8,200. You can, it's certainly somebody where, like, if you're playing in that $10 tournament on DraftKings with 23,000 entries or something like that, you can bet on the arm talent for Cabrera and just hope he goes out there and mows down the Braves. Like, he's capable of doing it, but it's not a priority for the field. It's not a priority for me. There's just going to be other pitchers that stand out more. And also, for me personally, at least, keep in mind that I'm pretty much jamming Tarek Skubal. So in most lineups, I only have one pitcher spot available for the 27 non-Skubal arms. That's mostly going to keep my exposure to non-Skubal pitchers in check personally. But there is plenty of talent in Cabrera's arm. And similarly for Elder, I don't think you're going to need it a lot on this slate, but he is only 6,100. Like, if you need a value pitcher, it's fine. You're just probably not going to need it that much. For the bats here, starting on the Miami side, about 10% ownership coming into Ramirez, 8% coming into Lopez, 4 to 6%, 4 to 7% coming into Stowers, Marcy, Edwards, Hicks. Pretty similar to the field for me. Edwards gives you stolen base upside at 4,200. Lopez gives you a little bit of power and stolen base upside at 3,500. Ramirez gives you substantial power as a catcher at 4,100, hitting to the top, near the top of the order. Jacob Marcy still only 2,900. He has some power. So far this season, looking at what Bryce Elder has struggled with, right-handed hitters, 185 expected ISO, left-handed hitters, 224 expected ISO. Not really surprising to see there. He gives up production to righties, but he gives up more to lefties. As far as how you can exploit that, you do have Jacob Marcy from the left side at 2,900. That is a pretty good price point. But again, he's an outfielder, so that's not ideal. Similarly, Kyle Stowers is going to be your best power hitter here, but he's a $5,600 outfielder with 28 teams playing. There's going to be so many good outfielders. So you can only get so much, but if you do click Kyle Stowers, it certainly looks like a good matchup for him. Atlanta on the other side against Cabrera, not super interesting to me, I think, or for the field. I think with Atlanta, you're kind of just back to that. Well, this doesn't look particularly good, especially in the context of a 14-game slate. But if you want to play some $3,700 Ozzy Albies, or you want to play Matt Olson, by all means, Drake Baldwin coming off a 2-home run game at catcher, by all means, you can get to them, but there's just going to be so many spots that project better. They're not super cheap relative to projection or anything like that. Cabrera so far this season, 174 expected ISO to lefties, 140 to righties. You do prefer the left-handed bats, but it's not like it's a great matchup. He does have a very good changeup that he's thrown 28% of the time to lefties, sub 100 expected ISO on that pitch. He's thrown his curveball 26% of the time, sub 100 expected ISO there. Basically, if you go, and this really just applies to taking hitters against Cabrera in general, if you're taking hitters against him, you need to hope that he's falling behind in counts and doesn't have his control, because if he's locating, he's really tough to hit. Like, his stuff is great. It's just a matter of Is he falling in the fastball counts or not? He's allowed a 230 expected ISO to left-handed hitters on his sinker, a 586 expected ISO on his fastball, but those are his third and fourth most frequently used pitches to left-handed hitters. He would prefer to be throwing that changeup, throwing that curveball. So if he's working ahead in counts, if he's locating, which he has been much better at so far this season, it's a bad matchup, flat out terrible matchup. But it's, if he's falling behind in counts, which is what used to plague him, and he has to throw that fastball, you can hit that hard. So really that's what it comes down to for a matchup against Cabrera. If Scooble only gives the field 20 to 25 tonight, might not be a must play at 11-6. He's probably still fine at 11-6. Like, you don't need the optimal lineup. If you tell me Scooble scoring 25 fantasy points, I'm probably just putting him in every lineup. Yeah, like he won't be must have. You can find better options, but just with the way scoring works in baseball, there's going to be a bunch of cheap hitters that do well and outscore more expensive hitters. It's not like, the other sports where Scooble's costing you a lot of upside from bats because cheap bats are going to have big games. So it's not going to matter that much. Interested in your thoughts on Chase Burns' strikeout today when you get the chance? I haven't looked at anything. We don't have that projection. He's facing Pittsburgh, so I'm going to say a lot. I don't know what the line is. I haven't run K props or anything like that, so I don't really have anything to give you. But yeah, it is a good spot in Pittsburgh, I think, which is better than Cincinnati. Strikeout stuff's been absurd this year. If you were on the main slate, he would have the highest strikeout percentage on the slate through 28 innings at 36.5%. Stuff plus grade is better than every single pitcher pitching today, other than Christopher Sanchez and Tarek Skubal. It's tied with Drew Rasmussen. It's been better than Hunter Brown, better than Joe Ryan, better than Cabrera. He's been absolutely elite in terms of stuff. And also 2.48 xFIP, 6.04 ERA for Chase Burns. He's been outstanding at the things he can control so far. Cleveland taking on the White Sox in Chicago. Tanner Bybee going for Cleveland in a pretty nice matchup here. Aaron Savali on the other side for the White Sox in an okay, but not as appealing matchup. $7,600 price tag for Bybee is pretty nice. $7,100 for Savali would be fine on some slates, but I don't think he's particularly interesting on this one. Bybee, I do think is interesting. 15% projected ownership to Bybee, about 2% to Savali, pretty much in line with what I have. Bybee hasn't struck out hitters at the same clip this year that he has in the past. 26% strikeout percentage last year, 21% so far this year. We're 125 innings pitched into the year. That's enough for that strikeout percentage to be a problem and be indicative of what you're likely to get from him, going forward. But the salary has adjusted as well, down to $7,600. Like, that's just not a price tag you would get, especially against the White Sox last season. 4.07 xFIP, 4.5 ERA. So he has been a little unlucky in terms of run prevention. Stuff plus grade is still good at 103.5. Not entirely sure why the strikeouts have dropped off, but again, it's at this point, strikeout percentage to date is just going to be more predictive than stuff plus or anything else. So that's what you're looking at. But it is at least nice to see that he's not horrible in terms of stuff plus or anything like that. You would be more concerned about his pitching in general if the strikeouts were off and he's throwing 3 miles an hour slower and his stuff sucks. That's not the case. So I think Bobby looks fine here. We have seen the White Sox be rather annoying lately. They got to George Kirby a bit the other day. They've gotten to a few good starters recently. Luis Robert appears to be interested in playing baseball again. He kind of got it together before the deadline, and I kind of assumed he was going to just take his foot right back off the gas and probably find his way to the injured list immediately after they didn't trade him, but that hasn't been the case. You have Colson Montgomery up, who has been pretty productive, at least at times. So they have been an annoying team, but they're still overall not a very good offense. Their active roster against right-handed pitching this season is 12th in strikeout percentage. They are still second to last in WRC plus. So I think Bybee looks fine here from a splits standpoint. Lefties against Bybee, 22% strikeout percentage. Righties have a 20% strikeout percentage. Similar production, 316 expected WOBA against lefties, 300 against righties. You will probably get a lefty heavy lineup here, probably going to be 6 lefties / switch hitters and 3 righties. But again, just middle of the road option. I think Bybee looks fine. For the bats on the Cleveland side, I am getting to them a bit, and so is the field because they are very cheap. 10% ownership coming into Bo Naylor as a $2,600 catcher, 11% ownership coming into Jose Ramirez as a very, very good hitter. Carlos Santana, only 2,600, getting about 10% ownership, 12% ownership to a $3,100 Daniel Schneemann, 10% to a $4,100 Stephen Kwan, and then you're getting around 5% to most of the rest of the lineup. I'm mostly around the field on all of that. Savali's not a horrible pitcher, but so far this season, 165 expected ISO to lefties, 23% K percentage there. Righties have done a lot more damage, 214 expected ISO, 15% strikeout percentage, and that's really not ideal for the Guardians because most of the hitters that you would want to get to are left-handed. Most of the hitters in their lineup in general are left-handed. So that's not to say, whenever you see reverse splits like that, that's not to say like Jose Ramirez is a bad play or $2,600 Bo Naylor is a bad play or anything like that. But it is worth pointing out because you're going to have probably no real right-handed power in this lineup. The only right-handed bat in the projected lineup that I'm looking at is Arias, and he's not in the projected lineup that our data provider has. We don't have a single right-handed hitter in that lineup. So there's a very good chance that, you're just not going to have right-handed power to exploit unless they really buy into these reverse splits and they play like David Fry or something like that. So do keep that in mind. But that being said, like Jose Ramirez is a better hitter than Aaron Savali is a pitcher. Bo Naylor has power for a $2,600 catcher. So you have $2,100 CJ Kafis, probably in the lineup. He is 23, has played 5 major league games at AAA this year, 68 games, 243 ISO, 134 WRC plus, projects to have like a 150-ish ISO in the majors. Probably like a 90 to 95 WRC plus rest of season. So probably not an above average hitter at this point in the majors, but also $2,100. So they are cheap. They will get some ownership for that reason. But do keep in mind that it's not like Savali's a gas can in general, but especially against lefties. For the White Sox here, I do think of the popular pitchers we've talked about so far, I would certainly rather be targeting against Bybee than targeting against like Skubal or Hunter Brown or anything like that. I'm still not going crazy here though. Mostly in line with the field. The highest owned guy for me and for the field is Luis Robert at like 5%. He's 4,200 and he hasn't been good overall this season, but we know he gives you stolen base upside. We know that when he is healthy and mentally there, he's a good hitter. Like he has upside. So certainly don't mind him at 4,200. Like I said, Bybee has had pretty similar numbers allowed to both lefties and righties. Philadelphia taking on the Rangers in Texas, 3.5 to 4 total for Texas, 4 to 4.5 for the Phillies. For the Rangers, Merrill Kelly is on the mound. For the Phillies, we have Christopher Sanchez. About 10% ownership coming into Kelly. I don't have him right now at 8,600. I think he's a good pitcher. I wouldn't mind if I did get some, but he's probably somebody just kind of getting squeezed out by how much Tarek Skubal I have. Like if I'm playing 40% Skubal like the field is, then yeah, I'm probably going to play around 10% of Kelly because I have a bunch of pitcher spots to use and he's fine. But if I'm going to play 80+% Skubal, Kelly just kind of falls off a little bit. I have 20% Christopher Sanchez at 9,800. He has been excellent this year. I think it was his last start where he completely screwed me and a lot of people. That might have actually been against the White Sox too. I don't remember for sure, but that definitely might have been one of the games that they were really annoying. But overall, he's been very, very good this year. I'm getting to 20%. He's projected for about 15% ownership. So a little over the field, but pretty close. I mentioned his Stuff Plus grade a minute ago, but he has the second highest Stuff Plus grade of any pitcher pitching today, behind only Tarek Skubal at 114.3. Even more impressive when you consider that he is a heavy changeup guy, and for most guys, that actually biases Stuff Plus against them. Obviously not the case for Sanchez. 26% strikeout percentage this year is up nearly 6 points from last year. That Stuff Plus grade is up nearly 8 points. His command has fallen off a little bit, but it's still close to average. He's just been very, very good this year overall. 2.81 xFIP, 2.4 ERA. The Rangers, against left-handed pitching since the start of last season, also rank 21st in WRC plus. They rank 3rd in strikeout percentage behind only the Orioles and the White Sox. Really nice matchup here for Christopher Sanchez. I like getting him even at that elevated price tag. For the bats, on the Phillies side, I'm not getting to too much, but I do have 10% Schwarber at 2% owned. I do have 5% Harper at 2% owned. It's Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper at low ownership. Goes without saying that I'm more than happy to play them. Kelly certainly is not the worst pitcher on the slate or anywhere close to it, but he does have relatively big splits this year. 26% strikeout percentage with a 149 expected ISO to right-handed hitters. Only a 21.5% K percentage, 180 expected ISO against lefties. So again, not that that's horrible. The numbers against lefties aren't terrible, but he does give up a bit of power to lefties. You do have two very, very good left-handed power bats for the Phillies. Schwarber in particular, 322 expected ISO against righties this year, 416 expected WOBA. Harper, 244 and 393 respectively. Certainly not upset about getting to those guys as contrarian options. Other than that, I don't have much from the Phillies, and neither does the field. On the Texas side, no ownership for the field, no ownership for me. Again, I just don't need to target against one of the most talented pitchers on the slate when I have 28 offenses to look at. Mets are taking on the Brewers in Milwaukee. 4 to 4.5 total for both of these teams. On the mound for the Mets, we have Kodai Senga. On the mound for the Brewers, we have Brandon Woodruff. No real ownership coming into Senga, and I'm not getting to him at 8,900 either. $10,300 price tag on Woodruff, getting about 8.5% ownership. I have about 3%. The strikeout stuff for him so far this season has been excellent through 28 innings pitched, 35.5% strikeout percentage. I just don't totally buy into it. That's much better than we've seen from him in the past. His stuff plus grade is only at 96.5. It's not like he's out there setting the world on fire in terms of stuff plus. And when you're talking about 28 innings pitched, that is still a stat that I'm going to use and look at to try and get an idea of what to expect going forward. Should we expect massive improvements or anything like that? His location plus grade, his command has been very good so far at 105.8 through his first few starts. To compare his stuff plus grade to prior years, in the past, his career average in stuff plus is 109. So you are looking at a very big drop off there. His career average in location plus is 108. So it's actually down a little bit there. But he's just always been a good command guy with very good stuff. So far this year, he's been a good command guy with not very good stuff. Yet somehow his strikeout percentage, for his career is 29%, and this season is 35.5. I think it's likely that strikeout percentage sooner rather than later moves back at least towards 29%, which is still obviously very good, if not a little bit lower if that stuff doesn't improve. The matchup against the Mets certainly is not ideal. They have a lot of very good hitters in their lineup. They have a lot of guys that are relatively difficult to strike out. Since the start of the 2023 season, keep in mind Woodruff missed either all or most of last season. 143 expected ISO with a 30% strikeout percentage against lefties. So the fact that you are likely to have a very left-handed heavy Mets lineup here is not really a deterrent outside of the skill. Brandon Nimmo is good. Lindor is good. Soto is good. Alonso is right-handed, also very good. But it's not like Woodruff can't get lefties out. So if you want to go to Woodruff, fine. But again, he's going to get squeezed out a little bit if, like me, you're playing 80+% Skubal, and then you're playing 20% Sanchez at 9,800. There's only, so many spots to go around. Yeah, he looks good. R. Stanley said, watching the news, you need to get out of Baltimore. It's as dangerous as a city in a third world country. Baltimore's fine. You should actually visit Baltimore and not watch the news. Homicide rate is the lowest it's been in decades. Yeah, Baltimore's fine. Moving on to the bats here. Probably not a game that I'm going to be super interested. Senga's still a good pitcher, even though I'm not playing him in DFS. Woodruff, obviously, a good pitcher. The only hitter here that I have double-digit exposure to is Juan Soto. Again, he's 2% owned. I have 12%. Throw him in that bucket with Schwarber, with Harper. I mean, this applies to Judge. It applies to Riley Green. It applies to Kyle Stowers. Whatever you want to pick from that bucket, you're getting really good hitters at low ownership. The reason they're low owned is that the matchups aren't great, or they're outfielders. There's a ton of opportunity cost, all of that. But 5,800 for Soto. Happy to get to him because he's Juan Soto. Obviously, the matchup sucks. Other than that, I have 6% Lindor, 5% Alonso. I'm getting to some Mets. They're not getting any ownership, so technically I'm over the field, I guess. But clearly not a team that I'm building around. I do have more of the Mets than I do the Brewers, probably just because of the talent in their lineup. Kansas City taking on the Twins in Minnesota. About a 4.5 team total for both of these teams. Joe Ryan pitching for the Twins. Seth Lugo going for Kansas City. Ryan's getting about 10% ownership at 9,100. Lugo getting about 1% ownership at 8,300. There are two things here that I usually don't play much of. One is Seth Lugo. The other is pitchers against Kansas City. Now, you are getting the Royals outside of Kaufman, so their strikeout percentage does go up a little bit. Joe Ryan is a good pitcher. He is only 9,100. He's another pitcher where if I were to play less Skubal, I would probably play more Ryan. But as is, I'm below the field at 2%. I'm just prioritizing Skubal over Ryan, and I'm fine with that even at their ownership. But Joe Ryan is obviously good. The strikeout matchup is not. Ryan comes in with a 28.5% strikeout percentage this year in 122 innings pitched, 3.5 xFIP, 2.7 ERA. Very good pitcher if you want to play him. That price tag is pretty affordable. Offensively, I am getting to Bobby Witt and Vinny Pasquantino in particular from Kansas City. 5% projected ownership to Witt, 3% to Pasquantino. I have 9 and 7% respectively. Ryan can give up some power at times, and you are getting a bit of a home run park upgrade for Kansas City. 193 expected ISO to lefties from Ryan this year, 23% strikeout percentage. Only a 154 expected ISO to righties with a 33.5% strikeout percentage. So you do see that really big drop off in strikeout percentage against lefties, in addition to more power allowed. Sub 300 expected WOBA to both sides of the plate. So again, it's not that Ryan struggles with lefties. It's just that he's not as good against them at getting strikeouts as he is against righties, and he's a little bit more vulnerable to giving up power. But overall, not a spot that I'm super interested in attacking. Outside of Bobby Witt is fantastic, and Vinny Pasquantino is reasonably priced at 4,200. On the Twin side against Lugo, I do have a decent amount of them, and so does the field, just because they are so cheap. Royce Lewis is still $3,200. Luke Keyshaw is $2,900. He gives you stolen base upside in addition to some power upside. That's just a really, really cheap price tag for him. Again, the matchup isn't ideal, but Lugo has allowed a 189 expected ISO to righties this year. He's actually allowed a 247 expected ISO to lefties, which is unusual for him. But giving up some power to both sides of the plate. And again, they're just really cheap. 2,200 for Austin Martin, getting 9% ownership. Cody Clemens, 3,700, getting 9%. 13% ownership coming in the $3,500 Matt Wallner. I am below the field on that one, only getting about 4% right now. Obviously, that could change. But Lewis, Keyshaw, Austin Martin, I'm getting 11% Lewis, 9% Keyshaw, 8% Martin. All those numbers similar to the field, a little bit over on Lewis. Clemens, I'm around the field at 7%. I have 5% Lee. So Minnesota just looks like a value team. They are going to be useful in terms of getting to Skubal. They're going to be useful as mini stacks with more expensive stacks if you want to go that route. They're just a really useful team to get to. And because there are so many games today, even though they're going to be one of the more popular teams, they're not going to be that popular where you have to worry about it too much. Cubs taking on the Cardinals. St. Louis about a 4 implied run total. Cubs around 5. Matthew Boyd going for the Cubs. Ben Brown, for the Cubs. Michael McGreevy for the Cards. Cam asked, is it easy or tough to steal on Lugo? I don't remember. I'll look. So far this season, 3 stolen bases allowed in 123 innings pitched. Last year, he allowed 5 in 206. Throughout his career, he has allowed, and his career goes back to 2016, he has allowed 30 stolen bases in 971 innings pitched. So, yeah, very, 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 very difficult. For the, which does downgrade in particular, like Luke Keyshaw, downgrade for Royce Lewis a bit, I think. But they're cheap enough that it doesn't matter that much. But yeah, it's tough to run on Lugo. For the pitching here, 2% ownership coming into Boyd at 8,800, 1% coming into McGreevy at a very cheap $5,600 price tag. Just don't really think you need to get to McGreevy. There's enough hitter value rather on this slate that you don't need to go to him against the Cubs. 8,800 for Boyd. He's been a good pitcher this year, and you would play him at $8,800 on plenty of slates. But this is one where I think it's easy enough to just get to whatever you prefer of Joe Ryan, Skubal, Sanchez, Woodruff, any of those guys. And so it makes Boyd not super appealing. 23% strikeout percentage, 3.82 xFIP. He's a good pitcher. He's just not as good, especially from a DFS standpoint, as a lot of those other guys. And it's not a great strikeout matchup against the Cards either. Boyd has struck out 22% of righties, 162 expected ISO this season. He's fine against righties, and you're going to get a lot of them for the Cards. But again, it's just not a slate where I really want to pay 8,800 for him. For the bats, starting on the Cubs side, you have about 7% ownership coming into Pete Crow Armstrong, Michael Busch, Kyle Tucker. These guys are all pretty expensive, but also obviously very, very good. They are solid pay up options if you can afford them. Limited sample since last season, but a 190 expected ISO to lefties for McGreevy, sub 100 to righties. 17.5% strikeout percentage to lefties. Don't mind picking on him with lefties at all. That being said, I'm not getting a ton of the Cubs here. 6 to 7% Bush and Shaw, 5% Tucker, 5% Suzuki, 3% PCA. Crow Armstrong, obviously, or Tucker. I'd be happy getting more, but that's probably sort of the guys that I'm losing out on by playing Juan Soto ahead of the field, by playing Schwarber ahead of the field, and clearly I'm fine with that. Not saying I drastically prefer Schwarber or anything, but I'm not going to be mad that I'm playing Schwarber and not PCA or Schwarber and not Tucker. It's fine. They're basically all the same. Very, very high upside guys. Certainly a better matchup for Tucker and PCA. For the Cardinals, going up against Boyd, I don't have any real interest here. There's a little bit of ownership, 5% coming into Sagesi at 2,200, 4% coming into Herrera at 3,900. But like I said, Boyd's fine against righties, 162 expected ISO. There's plenty of pitchers I would rather target against. 5 games remaining. This is so many games. Rockies taking on the Diamondbacks in Arizona. 5.5 total for the Diamondbacks, 4 for the Rockies. For Arizona, we have Zach Gallen. For the Rockies, we have Austin Gomber. Gomber is 5K, getting 0 ownership. I have 10% right now. I hope that I won't buy lock. If I do, it's simply because he's 5K and unowned, and you get some negative correlation against the bats. But definitely, even if I were to play 10% Gomber, it is 1,000% a do as I say, not as I do type spot. I would not tell anybody to play Austin Gomber. If you do, it's for the same reasons that I guess maybe I am. It's simply that he is 5K flat. He's getting no ownership, but also it's very likely. So I ran my lineups against the SaberSim projected field as opposed to fields that I create. This is very likely just an instance of he's projected for literally 0% ownership, whereas I will probably sim against a field where he's 1.5% owned, and that can be the difference. That's probably why I'm getting to him, honestly. It's just that he's not represented at all in the fields that I simmed against, whereas in the fields that I actually sim against for the slate, he'll be in 1% of lineups, and that probably makes the difference. Zach Gallen is obviously the pitcher to talk about here. $8,000 price tag. He has not been the Zach Gallen of old this season. It's very difficult to really pinpoint what's going on. His location plus grade is almost the same as last season. His stuff plus grade is almost the same as last season. His fastball velo is down 1.3 miles an hour. His strikeout percentage is down 3.5 points to 21.5%. But he has also been unlucky. 5.48 ERA compared to a 4.02 xFIP. And one thing that does generally make pitchers that are having down seasons look much better is facing the minor league Colorado Rockies. And that's what you're getting for Zach Gallen here. He's projected for 18% ownership at 8K. I'm getting 15%, right in line with the field there. If you wanted to play more, by all means. If I were to cut back on Skubal and go more mid-range pitching, I would happily play more Zach Gallen. The matchup is as good as it gets. You're getting the Rockies outside of Coors Field, which is amazing. Overall, including playing in Coors Field, they still have the lowest WRC plus against right-handed pitching, combined with the highest strikeout percentage. WRC plus is park adjusted, so that one doesn't matter as much. But having the highest strikeout percentage in baseball, when you play half of your games in a stadium where curveballs don't move and breaking pitches in general don't really move, and it's very, very difficult to swing and miss, is extremely impressive, hard to do, but they managed to do it. And now they are still playing in altitude. Arizona is the second highest stadium in baseball outside, other than Coors Field. So there is that, but it's still not Coors Field. Gallen clearly looks very good and is very affordably priced. For the bats here, On the Colorado side, I am getting to them a bit against Gallen. He hasn't been super good this year. Like I said, he has been a bit unlucky, but the Rockies aren't going to get much ownership. Gallen is going to be relatively popular. He has allowed a 190 expected ISO to righties this year with only an 18 or lefties rather, with only an 18% strikeout percentage, 186 expected ISO to righties, does have a 25% K percentage there. 4% owned. Ezequiel Tovar is the high mark for the Rockies. Goodman and Freeman are 2%. I'm getting to 13% Tovar right now. He's very cheap at 3,400, and he's not bad. Like, the Rockies collectively are absolute dog shit, but individually they do have some not horrible players, and Tovar is one of them. 151 plate appearances against right-handed pitching this year, 216 expected ISO for Tovar. Hunter Goodman, 2% owned, 5,100 is a hell of a price tag, but he has a 206 expected ISO as a catcher against right-handed pitching, and he's not getting any ownership. Tyler Freeman doesn't hit for a lot of power, does have some stolen base upside, and is probably leading off at 4,400. I have 9% of him. I have 7% of Adael Amador, who is simply getting in the lineups because he's 2,100. Wouldn't mind if that one goes away. 5% Jordan Beck, another one that I don't mind at all. If he gets into lineups, 170 expected ISO against right-handed pitching this season. I don't have much $3,800 Mickey Moniak, but I do want to point out that he is actually playing like a guy that was drafted first overall. 350 expected WOBA, 237 expected ISO. Honestly, if I'm going to be playing the Rockies, I would like to have more than the 1% Mickey Moniak that I have right now. But the main takeaway here is I do think that there is some merit to using the Rockies as kind of a value team, or in the case of Goodman, just getting a high upside catcher that is low owned. But like, you compare ownership on the Rockies to ownership on the Twins. Not that the Twins ownership is outlandish or a big problem, but they're going to be 2 to 3 times as popular as the Rockies. When you compare like Tovar to Royce Lewis, you compare Jordan Beck's 4,200, so maybe a little bit more expensive. But like, you compare like a $3,200 Brenton Doyle or a $3,800 Mickey Moniak to like Matt Wallner, who's 13% owned. You can get similar roster constructions, I think, with a lot of these Rockies guys to a lot of the Twins guys at a lot lower ownership if you want to go that route. On the other side, for Arizona, I am getting to them more than the Rockies, which I'm very glad to see because it would be concerning if I wasn't. Austin Gomber is not good. That goes without saying. There was a time in his career where I do think that he was not good, but better than people realized. I don't think that's the case anymore. Now, part of it probably is just he plays for the Rockies, but 257 expected ISO allowed to righties this year, 283 to lefties. Keep in mind, he has never been very good against lefties, so you do not have to skip over the lefties if you don't want to. But 7% projected ownership to Jorge Barosa, $2,100. He's actually my highest owned D-back. I'm using him for value. Not super excited about that one, but it is what it is. I have 14% Blaze Alexander. Again, 2,800, using him for value. 13% Lourdes Gurriel at 4,300. Those are my 3 highest owned Diamondbacks. I would like to actually get to the good Diamondbacks. I'm not right now, unfortunately. The highest owned Diamondbacks are Tyler Locklear at 14%, Ketel Marte at 17%, Corbin Carroll at 13%. I agree with all of those. Like, those all look really good. Unfortunately, at least in terms of my comfort level, I'm not getting a ton there. I have 9% Locklear, 9% Marte, 4% Carroll. Now, the one negative with Carroll here is that he is 13% owned. And while that's not a super high number, it is a number that is much higher than Juan Soto, Riley Green, Kyle Schwarber, Aaron Judge, whatever outfielders you really like. So that is something to keep in mind, that in terms of not necessarily median projection, because obviously Carroll has a better matchup than any of those guys, but in terms of just range of outcomes, expensive outfielders are the easiest spot to find pivots because there's a million of them and the field's going to flock to the 1 or 2 in the best matchup and just completely overlook a bunch of the other best hitters in baseball. So that's kind of the issue with Carroll. But again, nothing wrong whatsoever with playing Corbin Carroll in the spot. Ketel Marte has like north of a 300 expected ISO against left-handed pitching since last year, in a very good spot. Rockies don't have a good bullpen either. Diamondbacks look great. They're just a team that you do want to pay attention to the ownership, even though, again, in terms of raw ownership numbers, it's not super problematic because there are so many games. They are going to be one of the highest owned teams on the slate. Red Sox taking on the Padres in San Diego. About a 4.5 total for the Padres, about 4 for the Red Sox. Nick Pivetta going for the Padres against his former team, Michael King, or no, not Michael King, Walker Buehler going for the Red Sox. No interest in Buehler. He's not very good. He is very cheap at 5,400, but he's not very good. The Padres don't strike out a lot. They're a good offense. Pivetta is getting 13% ownership at 9,500. I have 7%. Throw him in that bucket of good pitchers that I'm not getting to just because of Tarek Skubal. Play less Skubal, play more Pivetta. That's pretty much just a sliding scale, but I am prioritizing Pivetta behind Skubal and Sanchez in particular. So I have about half the field on him. For the bats, I'm not really interested in the Red Sox. 7% Alex Bregman for me. The highest owned Red Sox is Trevor Story at 2%. Pivetta is a good pitcher. The Red Sox do have plenty of power upside in their lineup. Pivetta has allowed a 213 expected ISO to righties this year, 183 to lefties. He's always been somebody that gives up some power, but there's just so many spots to get to on this slate that I'm not prioritizing anything from the Red Sox, but Bregman is the guy that I'm getting to the most. On the other side, I kind of like the Padres, but I'm not getting to them. Buehler, again, just not a very good pitcher. Good Padres lineup. Buehler allowing a 166 expected ISO to lefties, 218 to righties. I have 4% Tatis. Field has 5%. That's the highest for me and for the field. So the Padres are a team that isn't getting much love, and you can certainly see like how they win the slate. They have a bunch of good hitters with power against Walker Buehler, but I'm not getting to much of them regardless. Seattle taking on Tampa Bay. In Seattle, great park to pitch in. For the Mariners, we have Luis Castillo. For the Rays, we have Drew Rasmussen. And right now, I'm not getting either one. I would like to get both. But again, it probably just has to do with prioritizing Skubal. I'm having an easy enough time getting to Skubal that I'm not getting to them. And you could also kind of think about it in terms of like, I think 40% Skubal on this slate is actually like more reasonable than 15% owned Castillo, sort of. But again, if you're playing less Skubal, these guys are fine. They're in Seattle. Good strikeout matchup for Castillo, although the Rays do have power upside as well. Very difficult matchup for Rasmussen. This Mariners team is very good. Josh Naylor did get injured yesterday, though. I assume he won't be in the lineup, but we'll see. I mentioned Rasmussen earlier. Does have one of the best stuff plus grades on the slate. Decent strikeout stuff at 22.5%. He is reasonably priced at 7,900. Castillo, 8,100, only a 21% strikeout percentage. Stuff plus grade is down this year. Strikeout percentage is down this year. Don't love him, but do love the park. So, again, if you get to them, fine. I personally am not. For the bats here, not much interest in Tampa Bay. Not a park that's very good for hitting home runs. Park downgrade for them in particular as well. On the Mariners side, not really interested there either. They obviously have big-time power threats, but there's just so many other offenses to get to on this slate. Toronto against the Dodgers in the best home run park in baseball. We have Max Scherzer for the Blue Jays, Clayton Kershaw for the Dodgers. No ownership really coming into either one. 2% to Scherzer at 7,700. Less than 1% to Kershaw at 7,500. Tough strikeout matchup for both. Worse for Kershaw. I have 5% Scherzer. I don't have any Kershaw. Should be just a fun, nostalgic pitching matchup to watch. Not one that is super appealing for DFS, though. For the bats, I'm not really getting to either side. I mentioned it the other day when the Dodgers played the Cardinals. This is definitely one where if you just take a step back, you can say to yourself, okay, I'm just going to play low-owned hitters against 40-year-old pitchers in the best park for hitting home runs. But that being said, there's obviously plenty of spots that you can convince yourself are really good. And this isn't one that I'm getting a ton of. 7% ownership coming into Davis Schneider and Alejandro Kirk on DraftKings. I have 4% Schneider. That's my highest owned guy from the Jays. For the Dodgers, I have 5% Ohtani. He is getting 14% ownership. Muncy getting 10% at only 3,900. Muncy looks like a good value at that price. Mookie is getting 8% at 4,700. Still trying to figure things out, like an 85 WRC plus so far this season. Obviously, nothing is wrong with getting to the Dodgers. I'm just not getting to them much, at least right now. And then wrapping things up in San Francisco, another pitcher-friendly park. Washington taking on the Giants. We have about a 4.5 to 5 total for the Giants, about a 4 total for the Nats. Jake Irvin going for the Nats at 6,600. Matt Gage is opening for the Giants at 4K. I'm not really interested in either pitcher. I'm not getting to any pitching here. I have like one lineup with Jake Irvin. For the bats, not really getting to the Nats too much. They're getting like 2% ownership. That's pretty much where I'm at. Bullpen game, not super appealing. For the Giants, I'm getting around 5% of most of their lineup, and so is the field. Jake Irvin has taken a big step back this year in terms of pretty much everything having to do with pitching. He's allowed a 275 expected ISO to lefties, 182 to righties. So you would prefer left-handed power there. That points you towards like Rafael Devers in particular. But that being said, you are still in San Francisco. It is tough to hit home runs there. So they kind of just look like another middle-of-the-road stack. So to recap everything, I'll put the highest projected plays on the screen, and I will go through my top player exposures as things stand right now. Keep in mind, like I said, my player exposures are incredibly flat right now. So even if I don't mention the guy that you like, there's a good chance that they're like, 1 percentage point or 2 percentage points behind the guys that I say that I'm playing. But starting with the pitchers here, again, highest projected on the screen. Tarek Skubal, far and away my highest pitcher, highest owned guy on the slate, followed by Christopher Sanchez, Tanner Bybee, Cam Schlittler, and Zach Gallen. All those guys are pretty close. At catcher, Bo Naylor, Hunter Goodman, Agustin Ramirez are my 3 highest owned. At first base, Christian Walker, Tyler Locklear, and Nick Kurtz. At second base, Xavier Edwards, Luke Keyshaw, and Jackson Holliday. Holliday actually tied with Ketel Marte. At third base, Blaze Alexander, Royce Lewis, and Jose Ramirez. Shortstop, Ezekiel Tovar, Otto Lopez, and Bobby Witt Jr. In the outfield, getting to Jorge Barosa, which probably just becomes some random value guy at some point. Lourdes Gurriel, Juan Soto, Lawrence Butler, Jeremiah Jackson for value. I don't think that he even necessarily starts. I think they probably go Ryan Noda. Kyle Schwarber is an interesting one that I'm getting to, but just really, really flat overall. Looking at stacks, overall stacks, Arizona, Cleveland, Baltimore, Athletics, Miami. But the A's, Miami, Houston, Colorado, and Minnesota are all tied. Arizona, Cleveland, Baltimore, my 3 highest. My 5-man stacks, Arizona, Baltimore, and the A's are my 3 highest. Home run pick for today, I will go with, I like Nick Kurtz a lot against Sugano in Baltimore. That wraps this one up. Thank you for checking out the show. Thank you for listening to me talk through 14 games. I'm sure it was as painful for your ears as it was for my voice. Thumbs up is appreciated. Comments, subscribe to the channel, all that stuff. But most importantly, don't forget, Early Bird gets you 15% off of whatever NFL package you want to use. I'm excited about this. We're managing the projections, the team of me, Brick, Davis, Yuta, Nerdy. Nerdy helped out, implementing things that he wanted in the Sims. I'm really, really excited about our product. Really excited about the Shady Advice Portfolio Manager. I don't say a lot of complimentary things about my opponents, especially without having incentive or being asked. But I know that I've been made fun of in the past on shows with Neil specifically, talking about how good I think Shady is at portfolio management and how I wish I knew how to do that. Now you can. Costs you a little bit extra, but it lowers your risk. It, I think, is one of the things that one of the areas that most people probably can improve on the most. So I'm really excited about that. But again, all those packages on the site, link below. Early Bird, 15% off. Have a good weekend. Good luck on your lineup. See you back here next week.